date. Gemma sat on the bed watching Zoe and Cece as they stood in front of the full-length mirror in Zoe's bedroom, giggling. Gemma couldn't help laughing too. Cece was wearing a poorly fitting dress in a cheap, shiny material with a garish print. The hem of a white slip stuck out underneath the skirt. On her legs were black tights with runs in them, and she wore what Gemma could describe only as sensible lace-up shoes. She wore a pair of dark eyeglasses that were fastened together across the bridge with tape. Her hair was done up in a hugely unflattering three-ponytail style. Zoe wore slicked back hair, a similar pair of taped-up glasses, a garish plaid shirt in shades of brown and blue, a clashing red and yellow plaid bow tie, and pants that were pulled up practically to her armpits, exposing her white socks. Black lace-up shoes completed her ensemble. "You are both totally hideous," said Gemma. "Thank you," they replied in unison. "But, what are you supposed to be?" Gemma asked. "Why, we're nerds, of course," Zoe answered, still admiring her reflection. The two girls turned and looked at Gemma. "Where's your costume?" Cece asked. "Go put it on." Gemma grabbed her backpack, which presumably held her non-existent costume, walked into the bathroom, and closed the door. What should she be? The only costumes that came to her were Starlandian ones, a Glion, a Starball player, a bunch of Aussie fruit. Not exactly appropriate for Wish World. She wondered if she could even access costumes on the Wish World outfit selector. "Hurry up," called Zoe. "It's time to go to the carnival." Gemma had to think fast. Then she smiled. She knew exactly what to do. She looked into the mirror and did her thing. "Holy guacamole," Zoe said as Gemma walked into the room. "You look amazing, Gemma." Cece stared. "Wow," she simply said. The costume that Gemma had chosen to wear was actually not a costume at all. It was Gemma's real sparkly Starlandian appearance. It made perfect sense. Since she was there on a holiday when Wishlings changed their looks, she could revert to her true appearance. It was liberating and fun. "How in the world did you manage to get ready so quickly?" Zoe asked, marveling at Gemma's sparkly skin and glittery hair. And Gemma simply answered, "Practice." Gemma discovered that she was totally in love with Halloween. Not only was the predominant color her favorite, but it was just so carefree and jolly and fun. Everyone was dressed up, babies in strollers, big kids, little kids, and even some adults. One man was dressed like a chef, and he held a pot with a little baby sitting inside it dressed up as a bright red creature with big claws. Some people simply wore white sheets with eye holes cut out. There were monsters and ladies with green faces and pointy hats. Even some pets were dressed up. Everyone was smiling and having fun. As the girls stood in line for a deliciously airy and sweet Wish World delicacy called cotton candy, Maddie and Kyla showed up. They were wearing high heels, tons of makeup, slinky-looking gold dresses, fake fur coats, large sunglasses, and flowing wigs. One blonde, one brunette. Gemma almost didn't recognize them under all the makeup. "Wow," said Gemma, amazed by their fancy costumes. "What are you two dressed up as?" Kyla tossed her head a little too hard, and her wig slipped to the side, covering half her face. "We're supermodels, of course," she said, yanking her hair back into place. Maddie leaned forward and touched Gemma's arm, surprised that no glitter came off on her hand. "Where did you get that body glitter?" she asked. "It's awesome." I brought it from home," Gemma answered. "And look at you two," Maddie said to Zoe and Cece. Very funny. Zoe didn't answer, but Cece thanked her. See you later, Maddie said, looking directly at Zoe, who nodded, then looked away. Gemma half expected the wish energy to pour off Zoe right then and there. The girls were obviously accepting her as a friend. And wasn't that just what she wanted? As much as Gemma was enjoying Halloween, it was time for her to return to Starland. After Gemma, Zoe, and Cece went on rides, pretty tame compared to those on Starland, played several games of chance, Gemma won a large stuffed white-horned galliope, which she immediately gave to a little kid, and ate every treat there was to try. Cotton candy was the winner, followed closely by something called fried dough. It was time for the parade. The girls lined up with all the other costumed kids. Music began to play, and slowly, everyone began to march. It was a procession down the main street of the town, ending when they reached the town square, where a stage was set up for the costume judging. People lined the streets to cheer on the costumed marchers, who waved like they were starlebrities. When Gemma saw people pointing and cheering just for her, being herself, she felt very proud. For a second, she thought she saw a familiar face in the crowd, but she figured she was just feeling homesick. When they reached the end of the parade route, she had somehow gotten separated from Cece and Zoe in the mob of kids. She heard someone calling her name and turned around with a smile, expecting it to be one of the nerds. To her surprise, Gemma saw Leona pushing through the crowd toward her. "Oh my stars!" Leona said when she reached Gemma's side. "How perfect! You can be your Starlandian self today because everyone is in costume. What a great idea!" Gemma nodded proudly. Then she frowned. "Why are you here, Leona?" she asked a little testily. "I've got everything under control." "Then I guess I'm just here for support," said Leona with a shrug. "So what's been going on back home?" Gemma asked eagerly. "Did you find Lady Stella?" Leona shook her head. "They're still looking. We went to Lady Cordial for help, but she was useless." "So why did they send you?" Gemma asked again. "You've already been a helper on a mission. I was expecting Tessa, actually." If someone had to come help her on Wish World, she would have liked it to be her big sister. It would have been startastic for Tessa to see her collecting her wish energy. "It's kind of weird," said Leona. "The rest of the Star Darlings were concentrating on finding Lady Stella, but Tessa and I started getting worried about you. We hadn't heard anything from Lady Cordial, but we didn't trust her to be paying attention to your orb. So we decided that Tessa would make the trip to see how things were going. We brought Astra along too, and headed to the Wish World surveillance deck. Astra had just lassoed the star, and we were struggling to hold on to it so Tessa could get strapped in, when all of a sudden something told me that I needed to go instead. It was like a voice in my head. It said, 'It's your turn, Leona. Go and help Gemma.' So, I kind of pushed Tessa out of the way and strapped myself in. She was pretty mad, as you can imagine. She was yelling and shaking her fist at me as I took off." Gemma smiled a little, imagining her irate sister. "So, how much time is left on the countdown clock?" asked Leona. "A half star hour," said Gemma anxiously. She took a deep breath. "But I have a feeling that the wish is going to come true when the girls are on stage during the costume judging." She smiled. "I'm pretty sure they are going to win a prize for best costume, and that's what will end up making Zoe part of the popular crowd." "Your wisher's wish is to become popular?" Leona asked. "That's a good wish?" Gemma shrugged. "I know. It seems weird. But she's really a nice person, so I guess it's somehow gotta be a good wish." "Talk about taking it down to the star wire," said Leona with a whistle. "Very dramatic. So what are they dressed as?" "Nerds," said Gemma. Leona looked at her uncomprehendingly. From what I can tell, nerds are unfashionable-looking wishlings, Gemma explained. Like they wear ugly clothes and broken accessories. Leona made a face. So why do wishlings like to dress up as them? She asked. Your guess is as good as mine, said Gemma. The Star Darlings watched as wishlings lined up, were introduced by the announcer, walked across the stage, and stood in front of the table of judges, who scored them. A group of wishlings, a girl in a blue and white checked dress and sparkly red shoes that would have fit right in on Starland, a woman with a green face and a pointy hat, a silver man with a pointy hat, a large lion, and a man who seemed to be made of straw in raggedy clothing were apparently from a movie called something like The Blizzard of Frogs. A bunch of girls with bodysuits that matched their skin tones, jewels in their belly buttons, and big, brightly colored wigs were something called trolls. The crowd loved them all. Gemma grabbed Leona's hand and squeezed it as she spotted Cece in the wings. This is it, she said. They're about to come on stage. Gemma stood on her toes so she could get an unobstructed view of the wish coming true. She had to remind herself to breathe. She was hardly able to contain her excitement. Cece walked on stage, followed by Zoe. Gemma took one look and gasped. Something was wrong. Very wrong.